So, take a look at this. It's a giant pile of scrap wood. To most people, this is just trash. It's the leftover bits and pieces from other projects, the stuff you'd normally sweep up and toss in a dumpster or, if you're feeling fancy, a bonfire. But to me, this isn't trash. This is potential. And more importantly, it's a scientific experiment waiting to happen. What if we could turn this pile of garbage into actual cash? That's the mission for this video. I'm going to take on a challenge. Build 5 completely different projects using only the wood from this pile, and then see which one sells first. This isn't just about making cool stuff, it's about understanding what people actually want to buy. The rules are simple and absolute. Rule number 1. I can only use wood from this pile. No sneaking off to the hardware store for a nice clean new board. Rule number 2. No cheating. All 5 projects will be listed for sale at the same time, on the same platform, with similar photos and descriptions. This is a pure, head-to-head competition to see what sells. It's a battle of practicality versus aesthetics, and simplicity versus complexity. So we've got our variable, the project itself, and our control group, which is, well, everything else. The question is, can we really transform this pile of forgotten offcuts into desirable products that people will spend their hard-earned money on? Will the quickest, simplest build win, or will people pay for something that takes more time and effort? There's only one way to find out. Let's see what we can actually make from this. Alright, first up, we have project number 1, the minimalist phone stand. The strategy here is pure speed and simplicity. I'm rummaging through the pile looking for the smallest, most manageable pieces that require the least amount of work. I found this little block of what looks like maple. It's already pretty close to the size I need. The entire process for this is basically 2 cuts on the table saw to create a slot, and then a whole lot of sanding. Seriously, the sanding is going to take longer than the actual construction, which is kind of hilarious. My hypothesis for this one is a bit of a long shot. On one hand, it's so simple that maybe it's not special enough for someone to buy. It's the kind of thing you look at and think, I could probably make that. But on the other hand, its simplicity is its strength. It's clean, it's functional, and it doesn't try to be anything it's not. It's a classic engineering problem, finding the most elegant solution with the fewest moving parts. In a world of over-designed plastic junk, maybe a small, humble piece of wood that just does its job perfectly is exactly what someone is looking for. So after a quick bath in some mineral oil to make that wood grain pop, it's done. Total build time was probably under 15 minutes, not counting the oil drying. It looks pretty good for something that was destined for the trash heap just an hour ago. The question is, will its ultra-minimalist design be seen as cheap and lazy, or as elegant and efficient? It's the underdog in this competition, the low-effort, high-hopes contender. Let's put it aside and move on to something with a little more flair. For project number 2, I'm aiming for the home decor market with a set of wooden coasters. People love stuff that makes their home look good, and coaster sets are a classic. This feels like a strong contender right out of the gate. The challenge here is finding 4 pieces of wood in the scrap pile that are similar enough in thickness and quality to look like a cohesive set. It would be so easy to just grab a single long board and slice it up, but remember rule number 1, scrap only. This means I have to hunt and peck for usable pieces. After some digging, I found a few strips of walnut and oak that were cutoffs from a tabletop project. They're different species, but I think I can use that to my advantage by creating a cool, striped pattern. The plan is to glue them together into a larger block and then slice the coasters off that. This adds a few steps, glue up, clamping, waiting for it to dry, which means it's already more time-consuming than the phone stand. This is where the engineering comes in, creating a strong lamination from dissimilar materials. Once the glue is dry, I can run the block through the planer to get it perfectly flat, then slice it into 4 identical coasters. A little bit of rounding on the edges with the router and a ton of sanding later, and these are starting to look like something you'd find in a fancy boutique store. The contrast between the dark walnut and the light oak is really striking. This project feels like it has a high perceived value. It's not just a block of wood, it's a designed object. I have a good feeling this one might be the winner. Okay, moving on to project number 3, the wall-mounted key holder. With this one, we're shifting from pure aesthetics to pure undeniable practicality. Everyone has keys, and honestly, everyone loses them. So this product solves a real universal problem. My theory is that while people like pretty things, they actually buy things that solve a problem. This key holder is designed to be the ultimate problem solver. It's going to have a small shelf up top for your wallet or sunglasses, and several hooks underneath for your keys. Again, the first step is a treasure hunt in the scrap pile. I need a decent-sized piece for the backboard and a smaller strip for the shelf. I found a nice piece of pine that's about a foot long, perfect for the back, and a thin piece of cherry that will make a great contrasting shelf. This build requires more precision. I have to cut a groove, known as a dado, for the shelf to sit in, ensuring a strong, clean joint. This isn't just gluing two pieces together, it's creating an interlocking system. It's a step up in complexity. After assembling the two wood pieces, I'm adding some simple brass hooks that I salvaged from an old broken coat rack. So, yes, even the hardware is technically scrap. This detail really elevates it from a simple piece of wood to a finished product. It feels complete. This project took significantly more effort than the first two. There were more cuts, more joinery, and the addition of hardware. It looks like a real item you'd actively search for online. Will the extra functionality and that product-like feel be enough to beat the simple elegance of the coasters? We're about to find out. Now, for project number 4, we're taking a bit of a gamble with a small plant stand. This is a risk because it requires more material and significantly more complex joinery. If I mess up one of the cuts, I might not have a backup piece in the scrap pile that matches. Plant stands are super popular, but people are also picky about them. They need to be sturdy enough to hold a potentially heavy potted plant, and they need to look good doing it. The perceived value is high, but so is the risk of failure. This is where we really test the limits of what this scrap pile can offer. I managed to find 4 legs of similar-looking scrap oak that were just long enough. The design I'm going for is a mid-century modern style, which involves some tricky angled cuts and a cross-halving joint where the two support pieces intersect. This joint is critical. It has to be cut perfectly so the pieces slide together snugly, forming a stable base. It's a classic woodworking joint that's both strong and beautiful, but it requires a level of precision that honestly makes me a little nervous when my source material is so limited. One wrong move, and the whole thing is firewood. After carefully cutting the joints on the table saw with a dado blade, I assemble the base. It fits together perfectly. Success. Then, I attach the 4 legs. It's already looking like something you'd pay good money for. This project definitely required the most skill so far. It involved geometry, angled joinery, and a lot of careful measurement. The final product looks fantastic, but it took a lot of time and mental energy. The big question is, will the higher potential price point and stylish look make it sell faster than the simpler, more straightforward items? It's the high-risk, high-reward entry. And finally we have project number 5, a small floating wooden shelf. This is, without a doubt, the project that required the most time, the most effort, and the most material from our scrap pile. The idea was to create something substantial and undeniably useful. It's not just a decorative item, it's a piece of functional furniture. I had to find the largest, best quality pieces of scrap I could, which involved digging all the way to the bottom of the pile. I ended up with a few mismatched pieces of plywood and some hardwood trim. The construction was basically like building a hollow box, or a torsion box, to keep it light but strong. I had to cut all the pieces to size, create an internal support structure, and then wrap the whole thing in a nicer-looking veneer that I salvaged from a damaged sheet of plywood. This involved a ton of glue, a ton of clamping, and a ton of weighting. Then came the edge banding, using thin strips of hardwood to hide the ugly plywood edges. This process is tedious and requires a lot of patience. It's by far the most advanced build of the 5. After hours of work, sanding, and finishing, the shelf is complete. It looks amazing. It's strong, it's sleek, and it's ready to be mounted on a wall. But here's the thought that's bugging me. I've invested probably 4 times the amount of effort into this shelf compared to the phone stand. For this experiment to be a success for the shelf, it can't just sell, it has to sell first to justify that extra work. Is the market really going to reward the most complex and time-consuming project, or have I just spent half a day building something that's going to sit there while the coasters fly off the virtual shelf? So, the 5 projects were built, photographed, and listed for sale. The experiment was officially underway. I was glued to my phone, waiting for that first sale notification, and the winner, the very first project to sell, in just under 2 hours was the wooden coaster set. I had a feeling they were a strong contender and the market agreed. They looked great, they were giftable, and they hit that sweet spot of aesthetic and function. But then, just a few hours later, the second sale came through. And it was the wall-mounted key holder. The two most practical problem-solving items sold almost immediately. What's so fascinating about this is that the projects that sold first were not the ones that took the most time or the most advanced skills. The plant stand and the floating shelf, which I spent the most energy on, are still waiting for a buyer. This is such a critical lesson. The simplest projects made the fastest money. It proves that there's often a huge difference between what we as makers are proud to build and what customers are actually eager to buy. It's not about showing off your most complex joinery, it's about meeting a need or a desire simply and elegantly. So my advice is to build what people actually want, not just what looks impressive on your Instagram feed. The data from this little experiment is crystal clear. But now, I want to hear from you. Which one of these 5 projects would you have bought? And what kind of scrap wood challenge should I try next? Let me know down in the comments, because as you can see, I still have a lot more scrap wood to turn into money.